and welcome to the Trophy Room's impressions of Assassin's Creed Shadows. We were lucky enough to be invited by Ubisoft to get a nice sneak peek at Assassin's Creed, get to play a few hours of the game. I did, at least. Um, and now, here alongside me to ask me some questions about the game is our good hosts, Tegan. How are you, miss?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am very tired. It's been a minute. And Mr. Kyle Stevenson himself, how are you, sir?
Likewise, very exhausted.
I know. That
Well, how
said,
is it only Wednesday?
I mean, as of right now, it's whenever the viewer clicked on this video.
You know what I mean. For us in the moment.
TGIF. So let's get right into it. I got to play Assassin's Creed Shadows. Is there any questions you would like me to answer for y'all?
I had a joke question, but I don't have the energy to follow it up.
Fair enough. T, do you have a serious question for the audience?
Yeah, so obviously we know that there's going to be two protagonists that we get to
Yes.
play as.
Yeah.
Um, can you remind me of the names first of all?
Yasuke and Naue.
Okay. How do they feel in comparison to each other? Like, do they actually feel different? Like, does it? So, sorry, I'm very tired. My brain is scrambled. When Assassin's Creed Syndicate
Yeah.
came out, you could play as two different people, but they basically felt the same. Like you could
Mhm.
choose like do I want to play as Evie or Jacob, but essentially they were the same.
Yeah.
So with Yasuka and Naue, do they feel different? Like is there a point where you're like, "No, I'm going to play as this character cuz this is how I want to tackle the situation" versus the other
I
characters?
think that's part of this game's strength is it kind of gives you the Assassin's Creed that you want it to be.
Mhm.
Usually Assassin's Creed has like that identity issue of like, hey, is it this action RPG that's 100 plus hours long or is it this stealth based literally assassin game? And Yasuke and Naue play this really great role of offering you literally both in this giant sandbox. So
Mhm.
Yasuke is going to give you what the modern Assassin's Creed game is. It's an action RPG. It's fitting your character out. It's about going up in front of the fort and just fighting all the bad guys that are in it. And Naue is the assassin role. She is, in the cloak. She's in the shadows. She's wearing her cloak. She's hopping on rooftops. She's doing, the parkour and the assassination. And I think that's what makes part of this game so very interesting is, yeah, Yasuke, he can climb up some walls. He can definitely parkour, but he's heavy. He's wearing this giant samurai, garb, so he can't do all the flips that Naue can because she's literally just wearing a hood and, sandals, where he is this big, bulking character. And they want you to feel like that at all times. So the
Mhm.
cool things that they kind of do to make them feel different is Yasuke will literally tear down a door, literally like a battering ram, to get to his opponents, while Naue will sneak in through the window to get to hers. So they play really well. Whereas, like, Yasuke is about taking the whole fort at once. Naue, if she gets more than two or three guys on her tail, she's gonna feel a lot more pressure to run and disengage. So she's
Mhm.
very much about the element of surprise, getting people out very quickly. And Yasuke is the brunt. He is the tank, and he's they're both very fun to play. So yeah, they play very differently from each other. You're getting two very different gameplay styles. Kyle
How
Stevens.
often are you switching between the two? Is it a personal choice of which one you're gelling with? Can you play it as one the whole way through? Like, did you get any vibes of how we're switching between
Yeah.
them?
So unless there's some, story elements here or there, from what I've been told in the preview event, is that you get to play the game how you want it to be played. So if you want to just play as Naue, you can. If you want to play just as Yasuke, you can. Or if you want to switch them up even during the missions, you can. So there are points in the mission where you get to choose, hey, do you want to play this as Yasuke or Naue? And you get to, if you're playing as Naue in the moment, you're like, no, this I want to see this story arc through as Naue. You can. If you want to switch it up, you could be Yasuke. Or if you're in the middle of certain missions, like side missions, or just in the open world, and you find like an encampment, you get to switch in the menu where you find your like inventory. You get to switch the character there, and it's pretty seamless. Now, I want to say this: I wasn't playing on a PS5. We were playing on the cloud on a Ubisoft server, so I can't tell you the load times in between their characters, but did get a few seconds where I had to wait until I could switch. But again, I wasn't playing on native hardware, so yeah,
Mhm.
you could switch them almost whenever you want and play the
Cool.
game as you want. Yeah.
I have a follow up, light, if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
Uh, on a scale from Mirage to Valhalla, how big is this world? I'm a little worried it's too big.
Yes. Even as the in the previews, what they were telling me is like this is a very big open world, and it is absolutely stunning. I can't wait. Again, we weren't playing on native PS5, but like playing this on a PS5 Pro, I actually genuinely can't wait because some of the the skybox just looks so promising. Like
Mhm.
seeing the god rays of like this the horizon hit you is just it feels great. And the weather mechanics that are in the game as well, like there's a day night cycle. When it's raining or like windy, the gust of wind, it like reminds me of Ghost. And when it's stormy, it feels like I need to hunker down and like find camp. It's yeah, world is huge. So that is something to take into account. TSC, you're excited.
Going off of you were talking about the weather mechanics, and I do
Yeah.
recall they showed us some stuff in terms of like how it's different at nighttime with the shadows and there the different weather.
Mhm.
Did you notice that that actually impacted your gameplay style? So if you are stealthing through an area, was it actually easier at night or easier in the snow or more difficult or did it actually have an impact or is it one of those things where they're like, "Ooh, it's day night cycle. It's this, it's that," but it still feels the same?
All right, Splinter Cell fans, rejoice. When it's nighttime and you're not in light, they can't find you. So the one thing that kind of bugged me a little bit was when you're Naue and you're trying to be sneaky during the day, the reticle where like, usually it's like the alert of the guards are always going to be in the middle. So you have to be even more mindful when you're moving around. But when you're at night and it's pitch black, it's midnight, if they're not by a lamp or any type of like candle, they
Mm.
can't see you. And so you could just walk up to them. There was a time where I jumped off from the roof and I failed the landing and I was like a few feet away from the guy and he made a sound. He's like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Crouch." Oh wait, he doesn't see me because it's midnight. And I was able to assassinate him there. The day night cycle actually does change the way that you play the game. This is
Is
really
that
cool.
for both of them? Like at night?
That's a very great question. I would assume so, but
Okay.
again, Yasuke is not like
It's
he's
not
not a
nimble.
shinobi. He's
Yeah.
not he's not nimble in the slightest, guys. Like the really cool thing, like Naoe's animations are just brilliant. She's somersaulting while she's vaulting. This guy, he's like, "Give me a second," and he's like trying to like hop a fence, like in Shaun of the Dead. Um, yeah, I tried a lot to be I'm the bulwark, and that wasn't working for me. But so like, there's still some strategy to Yasuke. I was like, you can't just take on the whole encampment. You gotta still play it a little smart. But yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, he plays very
How
similarly to like Cassandra, but heavier. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Did you get a sense of any like side quests or any other stories that are happening?
Yes.
Um any hint at outside of the side quests like the golden path? Like what are these two doing? What's our end goal kind of thing?
Yeah.
And like I know general Assassin's Creeds are kind of all
This
samey in some way, shape, or form,
yeah.
but
Odyssey was very much inspired by, if I'm not mistaken, The Witcher 3 in terms of its side quests. I can see this way more fleshed out now, having played both. Um, the side quests and the characters that you meet so far, of which I've seen, um, are pretty darn interesting and really the voice acting's incredible. Um, so there's different like English I played the most of. Um, They sound great. Both of them sound really convincing. The Japanese voice actors I play for just a few minutes also really convincing, really well. Like just the animated animation of their faces are really well done. Um, but yeah, from what I've seen, there is a lot of content here to to uh, to devour. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, that's the word I'm gonna use. T, what you got for me?
Um, so in Valhalla, one of the things that people complained about is that there was like a lot of collectible things, but it was the same collectible things over and over again. And they
Mhm.
kind of got away from that a bit in Mirage, but it was a much smaller game. So it probably was just because of the scale of the game was much smaller
Yeah.
because it was still you're finding these same things over and over just on a smaller scale. Did you get a sense of what the collectibles will be like or
Mhm.
if there are collectibles? Is it going to be overwhelming? Like I personally liked it, but a lot of people felt it was over bloated in Valhalla like okay, here's more gold bricks. I had to find a
Yeah.
thousand more of these. Or does it seem like they did a good job balancing like here are collectibles but they're more meaningful or more
Yeah.
important to the story or something along those
There
lines?
are some cool things. I get it. This game's gonna be side by side of like Ghost of Tsushima.
Mhm.
That's what the comparisons are gonna be. There's no fox leading you to any shrines, stuff like that. Um, but there'll be like a crane and it's eating a fish, and you're just like drawing that crane as Yasuke,
Oh my
which I
god, I
thought
love
was
that.
pretty cool. Yeah. Um, I didn't dive too much into the side stuff because I wanted to devour
Mhm.
what was there. But what was
Yeah.
interesting is, Ubisoft gets that bad rap of like, oh, it's an Ubisoft checklist game. And
Mhm.
the one point that you made is like, oh, it could feel over bloated. I could feel overwhelmed. um it's all about points of interest. So now when you're climbing up on the highest peak to synchronize to the level, you're actually using your ability to kind of scout out mystery locations that you can go to that'll have like, oh, like I don't know what this is, there's smoke over here, so let me go over there and there's a bandit cap. Or I'm going to go over here to this shrine and there's a cluster of quests that I can walk in and kind of like solve whatever is happening. So it doesn't feel as bloated, but the one thing that it does is it never wants to give you the clearest path. So when we talk about like the golden path, it's saying, hey, this person is in this village in the northeast side, go find them. And then
Okay.
you're like, okay, so I'm opening my map. I'm in this town. Where is the son of a gun? And if you
Mhm.
want to get to that point of interest, you want to golden path it because you're an assassin. You have a network of assassins. So you can scout that portion of the map and it'll tell you where that quest marker is. So,
That's
like,
cool.
yeah, it is very much like, I, that's that is the part where I'm interested because it's either going to be incredibly frustrating later on, or it's going to be actually pretty rewarding when you're like, oh, okay. So if they're in the southeast of this town, I'll send a scout to the southeast of this town. They'll tell me what's going on in this town. So, yeah,
Mhm.
It's very like which one was it? Like AC Brotherhood, like the
kind
older
of.
ones where you had like your little band of assassins and they would go. You could
Oh
assign them to
yeah,
go do
you could send
stuff.
them on missions and stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds cool.
there's
Yep.
definitely some base building stuff, and I'm going to be honest
Okay.
with the audience here. Totally turned off. Did not get to play it though in the preview, so it could be very interesting. But I am not the one for base building in the
Okay.
slightest.
That was
Yeah,
gonna be my next question because I'm really excited about that. One of the things that I love about the Assassin's Creed games is like rebuilding Monteriggioni. And
Yeah.
obviously in that was much more straightforward. Like this is gonna be here, but you just pay the money and it will be what it will be.
yeah,
Versus Valhalla, you could choose what you built where, but it was still specific plots. So I was curious to see kind of how that transformed or grew in this next iteration.
it's
But
to put it in again as simple terms of my dumb brain can understand. It's kind of like your Animal Crossing. The Animal
okay.
Crossingified it. It's not like the, hey, go build the longhouse and the longhouse is going to be right here in this section right here. It's
Hmm.
more freeing where it's like, hey, I'm going to build the longhouse in this corner of the base, or I'm going to put it at the center. Maybe I'm going to
Hmm.
put some trees over here to really improve its feng shui, whatever the vibe you want it to be. It's interesting that way, so I think you might lose some time to that.
I'm excited for that. Cool.
Yes. Yeah. Uh,
Uh, Question about how it handles its like loot system. Because
Mhm.
something I didn't really totally love with Valhalla and like the last couple of the bigger open worlds Assassin's Creed game, Mirage as well. Um, there's so much loot, different weapons,
Yeah.
and rarity systems, and it was a lot to take in. Did you get a sense of getting new weapons,
Mhm.
and also like does it affect the outwardly appearance of your character? So like if
I
I put on a new set of armor,
yeah.
is it reflected in the game, and do they look cool
I am
afterwards?
so glad that you asked this question because first off, there is a lot of armor in this game. I didn't get to really do much with it because they gave me a really good set. But there's different weapon types. So the weapons that I got to play with was, of course, the katana. But he also has this giant Yasuke has this giant mace that he could deliver some really heavy damage to his enemies. He has a pole arm which has a lot of reach with it, and that's what I really loved, the finesse that he had with it. Again, the animations are great, and it does this really cool thing where there's a semi stance system. So like if I hold down the L1, he's gonna be like batters up type of thing, and it's gonna hit a little harder at a certain angle, and maybe it's gonna break their stance. Or I can set it like hold R2 down and I have it at a wide stance so I could get a wide hit and hit multiple enemies and hit them hard. Um, that was really cool. Naue also has, from what I've again experienced, yet again, short blade katana that she's wielding in the backhand like a total badass. She's like always ready to stab someone like Emperor Palpatine. But she also has this cool sickle and mace that she gets to hit around enemies. So like if you're getting run up on by a ton of people, which the AI are incredibly aggressive in this game, you're able to use this flail and kind of hit multiple enemies and kind of keep them at a distance. Again, it's not going to do much damage because Naue is not the fighter that Yasuke is, but it's enough to go, okay, I hit you, I'm gonna run on out of here. Her, though you can dodge with both, they really made it apparent, at least in this preview. Naue is a lot about dodging. Yasuke is a lot about parrying. So it's gonna depend on who you like or what you like to do more. Do you like parrying? You might be Yasuke. If you like dodging, you're gonna probably be like me with Naue. Yeah.
How did this seemed to fit in with the overarching main story of the games, because I love the Assassin's Creed franchise, but I'm not gonna lie, I got real confused about how they all started tying together, where I was in terms of like, obviously I taught history, so like I understood where I was in the timeline of things,
Mhm.
but the timeline got confusing of like we're at the beginning of the assassins, but now we're at the even more beginning of the assassins, but she's not really an assassin now, she's a this, and
Yeah.
it got a little complicated, and I've tried to watch like breakdown videos and it's still kind of complicated. Does this story seem to fit in nicely and make sense where it is, or is it kind of one of those ones that's just making the lore a little bit more confusing?
That's a great question because I take Assassin's Creed a little differently, as I am a Flag and Odyssey boy, where I'm like, listen, the modern day stuff is the modern day stuff. I'm just here for the story element of Black
Hmm.
Flag. I'm here for Cassandra as we stand. Um, but like for me, it's never been about that broadening story. I don't know the sense here, but what I
Okay.
can say is it feels like it leans more towards Odyssey, where I think there may be another group that we're going after.
Okay.
So it's giving me a lot of the Odyssey vibes of like, hey, this is the tree of people that we need to get to this one guy, and here's this interesting story arc to get to this one guy. Um, so it's giving me Odyssey vibes in terms of story, though I will say it also gives me a bit of Watchdog vibes as well, and that's all I can say on that.
Oh, we getting Desmond and Abstergo back?
It definitely gives me that vibe, man. It definitely gives
Okay.
me, yeah, it gives me that vibe. Is all I can say.
Uh, Not a super intense question, but
Okay.
did you do the iconic dive into hay?
Oh my goodness gracious, Kyle Stevenson.
And did they change it up because of it's a new setting?
Yes.
Okay.
So Naue will dive beautifully, poetically, if you switch to Yasuke, like the person in my Ubisoft who was previewing me, they're like, just switch to Yasuke. And I did. And when he falls, it's like if we were to fall. And he said something along the lines of like, well, if you could get up from a fall, it's a good fall.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah, man. Really awesome. A really awesome, like, tonal shift between these two characters. The one bit I do want to talk about, because I'm looking through the notes, it looks like I skipped over. When I say most of the time, 90% of the time, you could switch from characters. The moments when you can't, it's because the level is built for that character. So when you're in that mission and you switch that main story mission and you switch over to Yasuke, they literally designed that level for Yasuke, so you can't switch to Naue. It
Mhm.
seems. When I was asking that, I was like, "Oh, is this literally?" It's like they built a. It's the same story. They built two different levels for it. I thought that was very. If they keep up with that, that is a very impressive feat that they've made. Yeah. Any last questions for Assassin's Creed Shadows, Tegan?
I have one very important one, the most important one in my
Okay.
eyes. Assassin's Creed for me is all about the music, specifically when the Ezio's family song hits. That is the moment I am always looking for. I love how every game has a different iteration of it. I was super disappointed in Valhalla when I never quite got my Ezio family song version, and there was one on the soundtrack, but it wasn't exactly the same.
Fair.
But they brought it back again for Mirage, and every time that happens, I'm just crying. It's so beautiful. I get so excited to hear the Ezio's family song in a different part of the world, mixed with music from a different culture. Did you hear that song? Did it have its moment?
I don't know because I don't know the song. I'm so sorry.
No!
I'm so
Joe!
sorry. I
You're
know.
keeping me in suspense.
But what I would say is that, like, the music that is in this game was a vibe. It was
Okay.
nice. Enjoyed myself.
Okay.
Kyle
I'm
Stevenson?
excited.
One final question, and it's a
Sure.
bit of a broad one,
Okay.
and there's no right or wrong answer here.
Sure.
But how excited are we that we're getting more games like Ghost
Man,
and more like Samurai? This kind of setting that is so cool.
yeah.
And do you? Not saying we are, obviously, but are we worried having two big open world games in the same year of similar type of setting and vibe?
So that's a great question, Kyle. And I hate to answer it like, I feel like I'm going to answer it like a dick. But I think putting them side by side, because they're Japanese, like, the setting is in not feudal Japan, it is in Japan. Um, I think that's that's what I'm worried about this game for, because it's like, oh, I am thinking about Ghost of Tsushima, though I know I shouldn't be thinking about Ghost of
Mm-hmm.
Tsushima, because they are still different games at the end of the day.
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. So that does have me worried that we're gonna pit them against each other, but they are, if you're fiending for Ghost of Yote, this is gonna hold you over. If you're looking for something that is your Assassin's Creed in Japan, the thing we've been waiting for, I think this might be it.
Hell yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
Yeah. I walked away pretty darn impressed, either though I'm not very good at the game in the slightest. I was still having fun, even though I was dog water. So, yeah, I was enjoying my time with Ghosts. Sorry,
Sorry.
with Assassin's Creed Shadows. It was a good time and I enjoyed it. So, I look forward to the full release in March. And let me know in the comments if you guys are as well. With all
Can you
that
blink
said,
twice if you think my Fantasy Critic League is in good shape
oh, in good
with
shape.
this game?
Nothing's gonna repair that thing, T. Everybody,
Whoa.
we
Whoa.
love you, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.